Hello, everyone. Welcome back or welcome for the first time to the Perfectly Imperfect podcast. This is Leah Brueggemann, your host today, and I am super excited to be having a conversation today with Leah I did not ask you how to pronounce your last name. I think it's Brueggemann.
Yeah, that's pretty
Is that
close.
right?
Brueggemann.
Okay,
Yeah,
pretty close.
Brueggemann.
All right. Well, Leah is here today, and we've actually, it's the first time that we're chatting. Leah and I connected virtually through another social media friend that was sharing what Leah was going to share in her group, all about how hormones are connected with pretty much everything that we do or don't do. And as you all know, I'm an imperfect action coach. And one of the things that I love to dig deeper into is figuring out what is holding us back from taking that imperfect action. So today, Leah's going to dive a little deeper into basically figuring out what are the best times of the month to do certain things that are going to help us grow and help flourish our business and ourselves. So Leah, if you wouldn't mind jumping on and just sharing a little bit about yourself before we officially get started with the questions.
Yeah, for sure. So, like she said, my name is Leah Brueggemann. I know it's hard to say, but you guys, my maiden name was even more confusing. So I should be grateful that I go by my married name. So I am a mom. I have a 7.5-month-old baby boy, and I got started out in hormones, honestly, by accident. Okay. So I got diagnosed with fibroadenomas, which are benign breast tumors, actually quite a few years ago, about 6-7 years ago. And I had the breast cancer scare. I found a lump in my breast. I freaked out, went to the doctor, all the tears. I decided, my personal choice, to not get them removed because they come back unless you figure out what's causing them. And so I went down this whole journey of trying to fix my fibroadenomas and shrink my fibroadenomas. And I worked with doctors, holistic nutritionists, supplements, oils, tests, genetic tests, hair analysis, you name it, I've probably tried it. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. The only thing that happened was I completely messed up my relationship with food because I would do these insane extreme diets to try and it was starve all the bad things in your body so your fibroadenomas go away. It didn't work. But I finally put together everything that I had learned and stopped targeting my fibroadenomas because they weren't the issue. The issue was my hormones, which were causing me to have fibroadenomas. Okay. And this became a really big deal to me when I got married, because as I had been starting to track and learn my cycle, I was like, oh, my luteal phase, which is the phase from ovulation to your period, was too short to carry a pregnancy. So my risk of miscarriage was really, really high. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I need to fix my cycle. And so I started putting my puzzle pieces together and just started using nutrition and lowering my stress and my hormone disruptors. And guess what? Started treating my hormones and my cycle, and my fibroadenoma started shrinking. I was like, what is this? And I started to have more energy. I used to sleep 10 hours at night and still be exhausted. My digestion was better. My weight just was beautiful and wonderful. I didn't have any fluctuations back and forth. Like I said, my fibroadenoma started shrinking. I was able to regulate my cycle. It had been all over the place in extremely painful periods, and lengthen my luteal phase. And then I got pregnant, and I had a very healthy, successful pregnancy. So that's what got me started in hormones. And it just kind of transitioned to I just started talking about it. I was like, you guys, hormones are connected to everything. Everybody needs to know about hormones. And as I kept studying and, applying things to myself, I was like, wow, there are weeks, and I'm sure you can attest to this, where you're like, this is the first day of the rest of my life. I'm going to sign up for that marathon. I'm going to start this new diet. I'm going to write out 1,000 blogs. I have all of these business ideas. And then 2 weeks later, you just go, was I crazy? Why did I sign up for this? And that is because of your cycle. And so what I love to show women is how to kind of map out their cycle with their business plan so that you can tap into that wonderful energy and plan your business when you are going to be the most high vibe, and so you can launch at the right time. And I get asked, well, no, I don't get asked all this. I tell you all the time, like, why should you do this? Because everyone, like, you want to know why you're going to do something before you do it, right? You know, it's going to take some energy. You will make more money. Literally. Like, that is, it's as basic as that. If you tap into your cycle with your business and you start structuring your business with your cycle, you will make more money, because you're going to be showing up with such a different energy at the right times that you inevitably will literally make more sales. So, and I think that's what every business owner wants, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things I think that we want, but I think at the end of the day, and you know, we need money. We need money, and we can make a bigger impact with more money. We can obviously live a little bit different with more money. There's so much attached to it. But I can hear you talk, or I can hear you speak about this for a long time. I didn't even want to interrupt you. I was like, okay, what else is she going to say? So I'm very intrigued about all of it, because as we were talking before I started recording, like you mentioned, everything is connected. And that's something that unfortunately I don't think a lot of us know. And even if we know, I don't think we know much about it. Even if we're like, oh yeah, hormones, yeah, it's I think it affects it somehow. So some of the things that I would love to know is, you talked about there being different times during our cycle where, you know, we're more this, or we're more productive or more creative, or whatever the case is. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because that sounds really interesting, especially around like, oh, when should I launch? When should I? Because, you know, launching is so emotional, I think, no matter what. Yes. So if you're launching and it's not the right time hormonal wise, I can't even imagine like how much crazier it's going to be on you, your stress, your anxiety, everything. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. So let's quickly kind of just run through the different phases of your cycle, because I'm going to reference back to them and I want people to be like, oh, I know what she's talking about. So let's start with menses, because everyone knows menstruation, that's when you're bleeding, right? And that is day 1 of your cycle, okay? And for my women that are on birth control or have lost their cycle or have irregular periods, don't worry, you can still do this. Sync up with the moon. So this will be the new moon for you. Okay, kind of makes sense. New moon, new start of a cycle. So that typically lasts, 4 to 7 days, whatever. We're going to give it a nice, wonderful week to just kind of put it in a nice package. And then you head into your follicular phase, or if you're syncing with the moon, this is the waxing moon. I think that's the one getting bigger. And this is when your follicles are getting ready to release an egg. It's about, we'll give it a week, and then you ovulate. Now, ovulation is literally just a 1-day event, but your ovulatory phase, we're going to give a week. Okay. So a few days before ovulation, a few days afterwards. This is the new moon for people. I mean, not the new moon, the full moon. This is for my women syncing with the moon. And, I don't know, this is like one of the best phases, but continuing on, the next phase is your luteal phase. Okay. This is after ovulation. Okay. And for my women syncing with the moon, this is going to be the waning moon. Okay. And then you head back into menses and you restart. So it has 4 phases. So menses, follicular, ovulatory, luteal, and you restart. Okay. So let's kind of we're going to start with follicular, because I don't know. It's just, for me, menses is, even though it's the beginning of your cycle, it also in my head is the end of something. Like, it's the completion. So when I talk about setting things up, I like to start with follicular. And follicular is the first day of the rest of your life. So when you feel like you are going to sign up for that marathon and you have 1,000 ideas, this is that phase. Okay. So when it comes to your follicular phase, you are the most creative. Okay. So your right and left brain are very, they're communicating very well during this time. Okay. So things that I recommend doing is writing and batching your content. Okay. So you probably already know, it's already a thing that your clients can read in between the lines. Okay. So you want to be writing this content when you're high vibe, you have all of this energy. Okay. Because if you think about it, I'm sure have weeks where writing content and doing trainings is like pulling teeth. And you're just like, I have nothing. Okay. Now, just give it a couple weeks. And when you're ending your period, now is the best time to do it. And knowing that for me is so relaxing because I don't get stressed about it. I know that the week is going to come when I can batch my whole month's content. You have this whole week, and I literally set that week aside to batch my content. Okay. So I just get my ideas for training videos. I write my content for Instagram. I just do literally all of the things. Okay. And this is when I do set some big goals, but I also remember I'm in my follicular phase. So maybe only set 2 big goals, not like 25,000 goals. Near the end of your follicular phase is when I would start my launch as well, because your energy is going to be very high. Okay. So typically, I don't know how most launch coaches that I know recommend having, cart open for about, 10 days. So you can tease, do your free challenge, all of that stuff, the beginning of your follicular phase, and then cart opens. Okay. You're high vibe, you're launching, you have all this energy. Okay. And you head into your ovulatory phase, right? So women syncing with the moon, this is the full moon. The reason why I want you to start your launch before is because in your ovulatory phase, your testosterone is rising as well. And you are going to be so much more ballsy. So, at the end of launch, when you need to show up on stories and be like, cart is closing, this is your last chance, and you need to show up with that type of energy. This is the energy you need. You need your ovulation energy. Okay. So that's when I recommend having cart close, is around that time. This is the best time to ask for a raise. Okay. This is the best time to have those hard conversations. You're going to have more empathy. Your communication is going to be very heightened during this time. So you're going to just talk and get your thoughts out better and be better understood by other people. It's a great time to network. It's a great time to collab, reach out and do all those things where you kind of need a little bit more to get it done. Okay. So I love this phase. I also equate it to the seasons. So ovulatory is summer, kind of makes sense. Great time to get dressed up and go on a date with your significant other. Just saying, you're going to want to put a lot of time and energy into how you look during this phase. And then you end launch, right? And you head into your luteal phase. If you're syncing with the moon, this is the waning moon. Okay. And the luteal phase is all about completion, okay? So what a beautiful time to end launch, right? During luteal phase is when I highly recommend doing back-end stuff. So if you just ended a launch, you're going to be onboarding clients. You're going to be getting things filmed and set up. You're going to take all of that content you wrote during your creative time, and you're going to turn it into email. You're going to turn it into blog posts. You're going to create your pins and get it all out there. This is the time when it's a great time to clean your closet. I don't know. I can't even think of any other back-end stuff off the top of my head, but I know there's a lot of it. So that's when I tend to get all of that done. Okay. So I use those 2 weeks of before my luteal phase for creation, for collaboration, for creating content, ideas, launching. And then I use my luteal phase to kind of fine tune everything, do the details, mass produce it into other avenues. Okay. And slow down a little bit. Okay. So pre-ovulation, follicular and ovulatory, I tend to equate to Beyonce. You have your Beyonce energy, you're up there, you feel super sexy and you just can conquer the world. And then as you head into your luteal phase, I just equate it more to Adele, you want to probably take some bubble baths, do some yoga, slow down a little bit, don't want to have as many social interactions, and that's fine. It's time to come inward, do a little bit of journaling. And you head into menses, or your period, or if you're following the moon, the new moon. And this is a time when you'll tend to evaluate your life. I don't know. There's just something about being on your period and shedding your uterus lining, and just you tend to just be like, is this where I want to be in my life? Is this where I see my life going? Is this where I want it to be 10 years ago? And it's a great time to do self-analysis and kind of look back at the end of the month and be like, how did it go? What did I like about it? What do I want to change about it? Do a little bit of journaling and maybe set up a new plan for the next month. This is the time when, like, if something's been bugging you multiple periods in a row, I'm like, if you've noticed it like 3 or 4 periods, maybe it's time to make a change in your life. Like, you know, if it keeps coming up during that time. But yeah, that's just a little like overview without going too in depth about the different phases of your cycle and what your strengths are going to be in each phase. If that makes sense.
Gosh, Leah, that makes so much sense. Like you're talking, I'm like, I'm going to have to re-listen to this about 5 times and write everything down and just make sure that I post it somewhere so I know, and then pay attention, because I know there's people out there that know exactly like the distance between, you know, the start of their period to like the beginning of the next. I mean, they know all the details. And then there's some of us that are more like, you know, it comes when it comes and, you know, whatever, like we're not really paying attention. But I think this will force us, you know, to pay more attention, because it's something that happens, like it happens every single month. And if we can break it down in such detail, like you just helped us with, it makes so much sense. And I'm just thinking like, oh, you know, next time I do this, like, you know, kind of just planning it out. I feel like it even makes everything, it helps you gain a little bit more clarity and direction around what to do through the month as well, and gives you a little bit more of a strategy, you know, as opposed to just kind of it being up in the air. That's so good. Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, you know, all of this, you talked earlier about, I think it was before we started recording, about nutrition and kind of tying it together. What are some, maybe just a few tips that you can offer the women that are listening, that you think might be able to be something they could quickly implement maybe? Or I don't know if there's anything like that you could share.
So I think everything goes super, I mean, you can, you know, start as simple as seed cycling, or you can go super in depth to whole cycle syncing, which is where I think the magic really happens. But just like when it comes to changing your business around with your cycle, do it slowly. Like I recommend, you know, first start tracking your cycle, see where things are cropping up. Like do that for a whole cycle. Don't change anything, just see. And then maybe when you're in your period the next time, sit down, because you've tracked the whole cycle, you kind of understand your moods a little bit more. And then I literally get my like calendar, business calendar, and my like period app, and I stare at them together and I go, oh, okay, so this is going to line up with this and all of that kind of stuff. And I move around what I can. Okay. So I'll be like, okay, this is up to me when I want to plan this. So let's say it's your content writing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to plan it during this week. And I literally just start with the things that I can, you know, and then the farther and farther out you get, and the more better you get at it, you can start planning your launches around your cycle. And that's when I feel like the magic happens. And the networking, like if you speak, plan your speaking events during your ovulation. Okay. All of that kind of stuff. But the same thing happens with your food. I just start slowly, so it's not overwhelming. And if you can walk away with 2 things, it's going to be liver support and seed cycling. So seed cycling is super basic. Literally, you've probably heard it, but you don't understand the mass importance this has on your life. But with your period or the start of the new moon, you're going to eat a tablespoon of flaxseed and a tablespoon of pumpkin a day, raw seeds. I'm just grind them up, put them in a smoothie, chew them, eat them, make muffins with them, knock yourself out. Because this is going to help support that rise in estrogen and the healthy detoxification, so it doesn't go overboard. It's also going to help prepare your body to produce the progesterone in our next cycle. And then once you hit ovulation and you've ovulated, or if you're with the moon, the full moon, you're going to switch to sesame and sunflower seeds, tablespoon of each. And this is going to help filter out the estrogen, help you detox better, and help that rise of progesterone really come up, because this is the one that helps stabilize your moods. Okay. So if you're too estrogen dominant during this time, this is what causes the PMS. This is what causes the mood swings and the anxiety and the bloating and all that stuff. So you want to help support it filtering out and that rise in progesterone. Literally, the seeds just follow those two switches. Menses starts pumpkin and flax, ovulation starts sesame and sunflower. And then throughout your whole cycle, I just recommend liver support, because your liver, one of its main jobs, I mean, it has 1,000, but one of its main jobs is filtering out excess mutated hormones from your body. Okay. So we are faced every single day with so many endocrine disruptors, right? Like BPAs, toxins, chemicals, like our skincare, our hair care, our makeup, our cleaning supplies, like fumes in the air, all of these, like candles, all of that stuff is messing with our hormones and the communication. So we want to support our liver in helping filter all of that out. And honestly, like something simple that you could do, so simple, is start your day off with some warm lemon water. Like that's just going to help flush your liver out a little bit more and help support it. It's so simple. Like who couldn't start their day off with some lemon water?
I love how for me, before we talked, it sounded so complicated to understand, so complicated to implement. And I love how you just simplify it all. It's like, just focus on this and this. You have a gift to simplifying, in order to simplify all of this. Because I feel like if you go somewhere, like let's say you go to a doctor, let's say you go to, somewhere else, I feel like there's so much information that people receive and there's so many details. Yeah. And unfortunately, I've heard this 1,000 times, a confused mind does nothing. So if we overstimulate and overdo it when it comes to all the knowledge and all the things that we are looking into and researching, I feel like we get paralyzed with so much information that we do nothing with it. So I love that you're breaking it down. You're giving these two little simple, the seeds and the lemon water or liver support. And then obviously you talked about starting to track your cycle. And then, so whoever's listening, if you're listening to this, write all this down and then come back to it again, and then listen to the parts that maybe you haven't implemented yet. So you can, because again, if we start to do too many things at one time, we know this, we do none of them, or we start doing them all. And then within a couple weeks, maybe max a month, they're all like out of our lives. And
exactly
because of everything that you're sharing, Leah, and how good it is and how simple it sounds, I feel like this should be and could be a permanent change that we can make that can be so beneficial.
Mm-hmm. I also think, honestly, once you're made aware of it, like it's this pesky little thing, you just can't shake it. You'll start to notice random things. And after I talk to people about this, I'll get messages and DMs and they're like, oh my goodness, guess what? I totally wanted to like learn the guitar. And then the next week I decided I didn't want to. And I realized I was in my follicular phase. And that's why I wanted to try something new. And once you kind of become aware of it, you can't shut it down. You start seeing it everywhere in your life.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. Like, I'm excited because, too much info, but I'm about to start, my, you said my messy, or what's the end of it? My menses. So I'm about to start that part. So I'm excited because then I'll be able to start at the very beginning and track it for the whole month and kind of see so I'm kind of excited that we're talking right now. So I'm like, perfect timing for me at least. But being able to kind of pay attention, because again, like you said, once we become aware, they say, in this day and age with so much information at our fingertips, being ignorant to anything is really a choice.
Yes.
So as of this point, if you're listening and you're like, oh my goodness, this, because it impacts everything we do. We're talking about this in business right now, but it really impacts everything else, whether you are a 9-to-5er, whether, you're a mom, stay-at-home mom, noticing like, where are you the most irritated, what time of the month? I mean, there's so many things I'm sure that we can kind of look back to this and think, oh my goodness, now it makes more sense than it ever has. So do you have, by any chance, and you may not, but do you have like any kind of printables that people can like, okay, you're saying, yeah, I like it. Because I'm like a printable like freak. Like I love visuals. Like I'm imagining like a graphic of like everything you're mentioning. So if you already have it, that's phenomenal, because I would love whoever's listening to be able to, have access to it and obviously connect with you that way as well, because I think most of us are more visual learners, and we can hear it, yes, but then when we can connect it with a graphic, with a visual, then it like sinks in and it just makes more sense
Yeah.
somehow. So yeah, how can they get that, I guess, would be the next question.
Yeah, come find me on Instagram. That's where I share all of my, well, I would say the majority. I love Instagram. That's where I hang out. You can come find me at Leah, Leah_Bruegg. And I have a lot of freebies for you guys. I have one for like your painless period prep. And then I have a bunch of like taking you through how to track your cycle, how to understand your different phases and all of that. So I tend to rotate through them all. So you're not going to find them all in my bio at one time, but just shoot me a DM and I'll send it over to you, because I am also very visual. So I am very much like, I have to paint the picture all the time to see what things look like. So I totally get it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it'll be really helpful, because depending on how good of a note taker you are, you may not, or you might even be listening to this like in the car or while you're washing dishes, like I love to do, listening to my podcast and any video that I'll have to sit down for. And at that point, it's like, oh crap, I don't have anything to write with, or I'm not going to stop and write this down or listen to this for 30 minutes and write everything down. But if there's some kind of printable, which obviously you have, so definitely go to Leah's Instagram account. I'll go ahead and kind of put all that in the details of the episode so they have access to that. Okay, so anything else that you feel could be useful before we finish up? Because I think already there's so much good information. I'm sure you have a ton more, but I definitely don't want to overwhelm everyone. But is there anything else that you think might be helpful for any new or struggling entrepreneurs that are on the other side of this?
I think one of the biggest things as women is we come in, and I'm sure they've heard this as an entrepreneur, like you come in super hardcore with a lot of what is, I feel like, called a lot masculine energy. And if something I could impart to you is that you are not a small man, okay? Your body and your hormones need different support, okay? And we don't have that same 24-hour cycle that a man does, that it resets every day. We have a monthly cycle. We have the secular, like the moon. And so if you could just start to notice the trends of like your energy and mood and cravings, and just maybe just start, tracking them in your period app, you will be so much more successful if you tap into that. I always tell my women, like, you're not a small man, so work smarter, not harder. So you can be just as successful, but why not do it more easily than like burning yourself out? So like know the times of your cycle when you can go, 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 go. And then also know the times of your cycle when maybe you should take a step back, because you're going to not do as good of a job. And like in a couple days, you can get all of it done in less time without like, causing more harm and getting burnt out and hating what you do, So I think that if you go into that with that mindset, and instead of like getting mad at yourself and being like, why can't I do this today? I was able to do it yesterday, and getting frustrated, and just going with called pushing through it. Instead, give yourself some grace and understand that you'll be able to get 10 times as much done next week. So why not just change around your schedule a little bit and work smarter, not harder?
Smart. You're brilliant. You look really young, but you are very wise.
Thanks.
Which I'm assuming you are.
Face.
You have a little baby still.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Leah, I could really sit here and listen to you for a very long time, because it's so interesting. Everything that you're sharing, I'm one of those people that if it makes sense, like my brain just is happy and it receives it. And it's like making this little happy dance. And when something is like, it doesn't even make sense, like I just shut down. But everything you're sharing makes so much sense, and it's so common sense, it's so logical, that I think everyone that's listening will be like, oh my goodness, like we just
I
had
love
like
it.
this crazy, mind-blowing experience. If people already know about this, great. But like I said, I had heard about certain things, and I had actually never heard this specifically. I had actually heard about, once you get older and how as you get older, it becomes like even harder to kind of keep your hormones under control, if that's even the right term, and taking supplements and all of that. But I love how you are breaking it down and helping us naturally, identify and kind of keep it, I guess, in the best place. I mean, seeds,
Yes.
I've heard for years that they're so good for you, and then all this different support. So I am very excited to, number one, start tracking all this, and number two, make some of the small changes that can help me grow and scale and be even more successful in my business, because it sounds so simple. Like, I mean, I'll let you know later if it went well and how simple I thought it was after I started, trying to implement it. But it sounds like it makes so much sense. And I think it's even a little bit liberating in a way, like when you were saying right now, if you know that you're in the stage where you're not the most creative, you're not the most this or that, and you're like, oh, well, next week I will be. Okay, let me just wait. It almost sounds like, okay, I'll just wait till next week, because I know it's like I'm going to be on top of my game next week. So that's such helpful advice. Love it. So you were talking about an app. I wanted to like ask you about the app. I'm forgetting. My daughter has an app because when she got her period last year, she was very heavy, she started tracking it. So long story short, she has an app. I've never really looked into it. Like I said, I don't really track mine. So what is an app that you recommend that you feel works really well?
Yeah, there's so many apps, honestly, like they're probably coming out of our ears now, but one of my favorites is Kindara, Kindara. And I just use the free version. You can have the paid for version that lets you track like bloating, headaches, moods, and all of that fun stuff. But I absolutely love that app. The one thing I will say is it will estimate your next period and your ovulation, and it's following an algorithm. Okay, so it may not be unique to you, which is why it's very important to track your own cycle to know, because we don't just have a 28-day cycle. You may have a 26-day cycle or a 36-day cycle. It just kind of depends. But that's a topic for a whole nother episode.
Okay, so on that app, you're able to track like when it starts, and then it kind of, okay, all right.
Yeah. And I have lots of I have resources out there for you on the basics of starting to track your cycle. Cause at first it seems kind of overwhelming, but I would just start with the app and like marking in your period and start seeing, okay, like I have a period every so-and-so days, and you'll start to put it all together.
So even knowing how, like if it's regular, number one, number two, how long it is, right? That's kind of where, okay. All right. Very cool. Yeah. Okay. So I know earlier we talked about, there's so many other things that you do with your knowledge besides just helping women in business and kind of helping them navigate the better times and the not so good times to like grow and scale and do everything in their business. Before we end, I do want you to mention anything else that you can help, women with, and then a way that they can contact you, which I think you said it was IG, but if there's other way that you prefer, yes, please do share.
Yeah. So I love helping women that have the cycle issues. Okay. So if you are having the PMS and the mood swings and the anxiety and the painful period cramps, that's what I absolutely love, is helping you regulate that and get rid of it and have a completely painless period and no bloating, no cravings, simply by using nutrition and helping to rebalance your hormones. Okay. So if you're struggling with a weight loss and no matter what you do, you can't lose the weight, but you love food, I love to help you just navigate that. And especially my ladies that have irregular periods or want to learn how to track their cycle, or are wondering like, why can I not get pregnant? Or I came off birth control and my hormones are all screwy and I have acne and all of these issues. I want you to be able to, absorb your food and use nutrition to help balance it out, because, nobody wants to be like popping 20,000 like supplements every single day. We don't have time for that.
No. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of time. And then even trying to remember I feel like that takes up so much space in our brains, trying to remember what to take and what time, because usually they're twice a day. And yeah, I mean,
It's
if we can just do
confusing.
it through good nutrition, then that just sounds perfect. Especially like you said, for those of us that love food, why not
Yeah,
use it as our medicine instead of, having to replace it
exactly.
eventually by actual medicine. But awesome. And is IG like the place to go for
Yeah,
everything?
IG is the main place. I am on Facebook also as Leah Brueggemann. Just you can probably find me Leah Brueggemann everywhere. That's where my website is, Pinterest, all of the things.
Okay, perfect. Well, this was an amazing, very, very educational conversation, to say the least. The only last question I have for you is a question that I ask every single guest, and it's for me. It's not really anything educational when it comes to hormones, but it's just a question that I always ask because I'm always curious to know, and I'm always ready to learn from whatever you've experienced in life. And I think there's a way for me to learn, and there's a way for our listeners to learn. So if you were to be able to go back, and you're fairly young, so I don't know how far back you can actually go. If you were to be able to go back and speak to a younger you, and you could say, Leah, and then you kind of fill in the blank of what wisdom you want to impart on her, what tips, what advice you want to give her, and you pick whatever time, obviously it could be 2 years ago, 5 years ago, however many years ago, what would you tell the younger you that you feel would prepare her for kind of what's coming, because you've already obviously experienced
Um, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to tell myself so many things, but honestly, and I think this is something probably all of us have gone through, but if I would go back to my college days, I would tell myself to be okay being you. Like I felt like I even though I was my own person and I did do things a little bit differently, there was always that like wanting to fit in, like not, like a little bit fly under the radar. And I would always, scope out like what are other people doing before I decide to do something, and I feel like if I would have just been more comfortable with being myself, you get where you want to go faster, but at the same time, it still got me here. So
that. Right.
very thankful for that experience. But I was very much one of those people that would like scope out what other people are doing before I would try something, because I'm like, I don't want to be the weirdo that's has the crazy idea first. Which I feel like we all kind of go through at that age. It's very much like a discovery phase and figuring that out. But yeah, I would tell myself to listen to more self-development podcasts. I feel like
Yep.
it would have helped very much at that time.
I think just to hear other people going through what you're going through, and it's like, so you don't feel like the oddball. You don't feel like I am the only one feeling and thinking, it's like we all think so much alike in a variety of ways, but it's like we can all fit into that box of insecurities and doubts and fears. Like we all have them no matter what, and we will continue to have them at every single time that we up level. Those kind of come around, they creep in again in a different way. They're kind of, whatever they're wearing is a little different, but at the end of the day, it's almost like they're going to creep in again. I think the only difference of what makes the biggest difference is that as we mature and we get older and we experience this, it's almost like we learn how to identify them quicker, and then we learn how to face them and overcome them quicker, but that obviously comes with experience. So I love that you said that you got here anyway. But yeah, with all of that knowledge and being willing and able to listen to others, whoever has come before you, through self-development books, podcasts, audiobooks, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the benefit of doing that, is that you learn a lot of things a little bit more ahead of time than you would have, naturally.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I saw your little baby back there, so I'll let you go. But I appreciate you so much, Leah, and thank you so much for being willing to talk to a complete stranger and just share all of your wisdom. And I pray and hope that whoever listened got so much out of it, because I know that I did.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.